Well, hello from Cardiff Dock Feeder in the centre of Cardiff. And this is a video which is, despite the fact there's a canal here, despite the fact I do railways and what have you, this one is actually dipping into a bit of social history. And there is a good reason why. You see, a couple of years ago, I was up in London, saw an amazing building. I thought, oh, I want to film that and do just a little story about it. So I took some footage and looked it up. And it said it was a Turkish bath. And I thought, okay, fine. And it said, the well-to-do use Turkish baths. The not so well-to-do use slipper baths. And something went ting in my brain. Slipper baths. I remember as a child seeing a signpost back in Reading off of Castle Street saying slipper baths. And I thought, okay, what are they? Asked my mother, she said it's where people went to bath who didn't have a bath in the house, which as a child I couldn't get my head around. And then I saw a photo recently with a building in Cardiff saying Turkish baths. And I disappeared down a hole as I wont to do. And this is the story and the information I came up with. So buckle in, it's going to be an interesting ride. You see, the Victorians were a bit of a mucky lot. They didn't have baths. They literally would do a tin bath in front of the fire. Miners, whatever, would bathe now and again. But families, bath night would be once a month. You would go eldest to youngest, and if you were the youngest, you would be effectively sitting in the slops of your siblings, is the best way of putting it. It would have been cold and mucky. And also is where, by the way, we get the phrase, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. It wasn't very good. Now, what's the problem, I hear you cry? So they didn't bath very often. Well, poor hygiene, especially in the living conditions that there were in the Victorian times, meant that disease quite often passed on, and things like diphtheria and cholera were quite common. So a group of well-meaning social enterprise and social campaigners got together and promoted the Bathhouse Act in 1846, and it was passed. It allowed local corporations to build central bathhouses where people could go and effectively buy a bath. As a result of this, a number of places built bathhouses, which consisted of Turkish baths, swimming pools, and slipper baths, places where you could buy a bath. And one of those was Cardiff. So in 1861, a memorandum of understanding was passed, which allowed the Cardiff Bathhouse Company to create a bathhouse in Cardiff. Now, the directors did it out of kind of a social enterprise need. They included people like James Insull, who local people in Cardiff will know Insull Court, same Insull. And of course the Buttes were involved, and they gave a bit of land. As a result, in 1862, the Cardiff Bathhouse opened. It was on Guildford Crescent, a name which will mean a lot to a certain generation of people. There were 2 swimming pools, a Turkish bath, slipper baths, and a mikveh. And a mikveh is a Jewish ritual bath which needs flowing water. There were first and second class baths, and for a shilling you could actually have a first class hot bath. Now, one of the issues they had was they needed a lot of water, and in 1862 there was no main supply as such, so they needed to have a regular supply of fresh water. Exhibit A, regular supply of fresh water. Yes. The bathhouse was built next to the dock feeder, which of course was owned by the Buttes, who were all part of the consortium, and they basically fed baths. If you look at this map, you can see there's a sluice here and a sluice here, assuming that's water in, water out. You can also notice something else, and that is the swimming pools are visible. In other words, they were open air. So you've got a pool which is open air, fed by the dock feeder. Oh, and also it's right by the Taff Vale Railway with all the coal trains coming past. It would have been an improvement on nothing, but there were definitely problems with soot on the surface of the pool. Now, the baths were successful, there's no 2 ways about it. People used them, but they were expensive. A first-class Turkish bath was 2 shillings, and that was a lot of money in those days. And they campaigned to the local council to take it over from them. This had been set up as kind of like a social not-for-profit enterprise as such, and so it was really benefiting the local population. And after a few approaches, the council agreed and sold it for £2,700. That's about £250,000 of today's money. And in 1873, they took it over and refurbished it. So one of the first things the council did was to refurbish the pools. They covered them over and they created a men's pool, a women's pool and a mixed pool. And they dropped the prices. You could now get a second-class bath, which meant you didn't get a towel, for fourpence. The council memorandum reads as such: each slipper bath is in its separate apartment and on occasion of use will be filled with fresh water. One towel will be supplied to each bather except in second-class swimming bath. Because the other thing they did was they ditched the dock feeder, and the dock feeder went back to doing what it was designed for and still does today, which is to get water from the River Taff down to the docks. And they connected it to the mains water supply. The bath suddenly became a massive hit. What I haven't been able to do is find a picture of the actual baths themselves, but this is a similar one from another bathhouse, because bathhouses were literally opening up all over the country. But the description said the washing baths consist of a small enamel iron bath, 4 foot long, 12 inches deep, fitted with a hot and cold water supply. Steam coils allowed the bathroom to maintain a temperature of 110 degrees, that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius, and over the centre of the bath a shower was fitted, the temperature of which could be controlled by the bather. And this image shows the baths alongside the dock feeder with the word Turkish baths written on them. An image which, one of the images that got me started on this video in the first place. Now we know the baths were successful because there were calls for more capacity in one newspaper item. In another one, a local council actually called for free baths for children on a Saturday morning and was told there isn't the space or the capacity to do that. And the other clipping we have on the time is a little bit sad, because in 1900 the general manager, Peter Mannion, passed away. Now he's buried in this grave in Cathay Cemetery, which quite frankly could do with a bit of cleaning up. But if you look at this newspaper clipping, it shows that they were looking for a new bath manager with their wife, because of course there were men's and there were women's baths, and there were also men's and women's Turkish baths. So having a female on the premises was an absolute must. So after World War II, Cardiff bid to host the Empire, what we now call the Commonwealth Games. To accommodate that, they needed a new pool, and the Empire Pool opened in 1958. The Turkish baths, the slipper baths, and the mikveh all closed within Guildford Crescent, but the pools remained. They were handed over to the schools department, which is why, whenever there's a picture of Guildford Crescent comes up on Facebook, so many people went, I learned to swim there. Yes, you did, in the freezing cold waters of Guildford Crescent. As time went on, you wouldn't have thought there was a need for slipper baths. Okay, Turkish baths are a bit of a luxury, but day-to-day bathing, not really needed, is it? Oh yes. Because a report in 1961 from the Institute of Civil Engineers commented as such, that they were impressed with the large number of services available in the Empire Pool, such as Turkish baths, the mikveh bath, a restaurant, and slipper baths, and congratulated the designers on creating such a wide field of requirements. As well as the Turkish bath and the slipper bath and the mikveh, there's also a thing called an erytone bath, which was kind of like a jacuzzi on steroids and was used for joint and muscle pain. Whilst it's been difficult to get too many images of the actual baths themselves, what there is out there is memories. And people, when asked about both Guildford Crescent and also the Empire Pool, came up with some quite fascinating quotes.
When we were too old for mother to bathe in the little tin bath, we would join the older ones every Friday and go to the public baths. We would have to go early for a large crowd collected in the waiting room when the young people would come home from work. It was impossible for a girl to pop to the baths before a dance, for sometimes it was necessary to wait over 2 hours for one's bath. We always took a book to read and always saw the local brides the night before their wedding.
The opening of the Empire Pool signified uh, what was happening when it came to pools and bathing. You see, it was opened as a swimming pool. Up until that point, we had built baths. And my generation, and possibly your generation before me, will talk about going swimming at the baths or the public baths or going to swimming baths. Why? Because they were bath houses with pools. The Empire Pool was the generation that had the swimming pool that also had baths. After World War II, there were also a number of purely functional slipper bath houses that opened right across the country. And there were no swimming pools, there were no Turkish baths, they were just a place you went and had a bath. And one of these was in Jessie Terrace in Reading, which is the one I remember from my childhood. Never visited it, never needed to, but it was there. Now again, photographs are elusive. A couple of pictures of it being knocked down, but apart from that, nothing. All I've been able to find is this floor plan, and thanks to some recently released maps from the Ordnance Survey, I've been able to find uh, this bathhouse actually located on the map. Up until this point, it was just a blob. But like Guildford Crescent and like the Empire Pool, there are memories.
I used to go to the one on Jessie Terrace as we lived at my grand's house, and I went there on my wedding day in September 1958 as my gran never had a bathroom. There was a very large lady who would run the hot water and you added the cold. She would then call out, "Time's up," after a while. I remember she had a huge bunch of keys hanging off her waist. That must have been in the 60s.
And at about the same time that Jessie Terrace was happening, another bathhouse was opening in Cardiff, this time down in Butetown. Now we know from newspaper cuttings that it opened in about 1946, because this is letter to the to South Wales Echo, complaining that somebody said that sailors in World War II bathed in it. No, it was opened in 1946, so we know when it was opened. And again, we can see it on the map. But again, very little history exists. I contacted one of the local history groups actually and said, have you got anything? And they said, no, but it'd be a really good project for us to study. So I have sent them everything I've been able to find. And if they do, I'll certainly be very interested to read what they find. There is also this article in from the 1950s, which says that for a certain time, the bathhouse will be shut for some renovations. And we know it kept going until the 1980s. And the reason for that is because in 1989, it was converted to a community centre and the building is actually still there. I went down to have a look at it and, well, I'll show you the footage. So there was another bathhouse in Cardiff, which was opened later after World War II, about the same time as the one in Jessie Terrace. And I came down to take a bit of footage of it, only to find out this. They're actually digging the road up, and it's all where they're digging up is right in front of the bathhouse. So you're going to have to put up with just this picture. And again, people have memories.
I used to live in West Close. Our garden backed onto the baths. I remember it in the 60s and 70s. The last guy to look after it only had one hand. I can see his face but can't think of his name. My uncle Julius used it twice a week for a bath back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s because they didn't have a bathroom and only an outside toilet.
Guildford Crescent closed in 1984. There was a campaign to keep it open, but it shut and was demolished. And in 1988, the Empire Pool followed it. A new pool was built down in Cardiff Bay, the International Pool, which is a combination of proper sports swimming and leisure. There is this inscription outside, which is actually stones from the original Empire Pool in a case. The steam room came with it, and there's a spa bath, jacuzzi in the middle of the pool, but things like the slipper baths, no, no more. And the aerotone bath, definitely no more. The mikveh itself went to the synagogue in Penlan, and today is in the new one in Kincoid. Jessie Terrace in Reading was actually closed in the 1980s, but wasn't demolished till the early 2000s. In fact, this report is saying 2003 with a picture of it being demolished. This is Guildford Crescent today, and you can see where the Ibis Hotel is. That is where the bathhouse used to be. You can contrast the two views. And this one, looking back up Guildford Crescent, is where the entrance was. All gone today. So why are there so few images of the baths? They were a vital and important part of social history. They reduced dirt and disease. It seems strange that there's very little actually photographed of them. Well, I think there are two reasons. I think, first of all, they were just a function in the same way that you would have a toilet and you wouldn't necessarily document the toilets and the inside of toilets across the years. People didn't do the same for bathhouses. But I think there's another reason. I'm not alone in thinking this. I think there might have been an element of embarrassment. You see, after World War II, um, there was a massive house building program. Obviously, a lot of houses damaged and destroyed in the war. And so they built prefabs and the tin houses and all sorts of quick build houses. And every single one of them had an inside bathroom. The concept of owning a house or living in a house that didn't have a bathroom might have been some element of shame and embarrassment. And so people didn't necessarily rave about the fact that, oh, yes, it's bath night. Either way, it's not been easy to find photos and not been easy to find information. And people's personal recollections have been very, very important. So thank you to everybody who's contributed. Which brings me on to the reason I made this video in the first place. Whilst I was up in London a couple of years ago, I came across, as I said, a Turkish bathhouse. It's a beautiful building. I started filming a short and it became a long. So over to me a couple of years ago in London. And this is what I came across a couple of years ago. This is the entrance to a Victorian bathhouse. It was built in 1895 by Thomas Elphick, and it was designed for men only. It was in the heart of the city, and it was somewhere where city traders would go. And you may look at it and think, it's a bit small. Well, the thing is, it wasn't actually the bathhouse itself. It was the entrance. You see, we're nestled here amongst loads of modern buildings today, but in those days, there would have been lots of old buildings here as well. And the bathhouse is actually downstairs. It stayed open to about 1954, and after that it's had various uses, including Turkish restaurants and a Turkish club. And today it's an event space. It takes about 150 people. But its original tilings and mouldings have been preserved, and to be fair, it's a little gem, nestled here in the heart of commuter land, just round the corner from Liverpool Street Station. And it was seeing this and looking into this that got me started on this video in the first place. It's taken me a couple of years to research, to delve, to find all sorts of things. But that's why I did the video. Why was there a bathhouse? Why was it a Turkish bathhouse? What's all this about slipper baths? And this video is the result. Now, if you have any images of the inside of Jessie Terrace or the Butetown bars or any of the bars I've mentioned, I'd love to see them. I'll feature them in a short at some point. But I'm going to be back out doing more railway canal stuff soon. This has been a quick dip, pardon the pun, into a bit of social history, but I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button. Oh, and by the way, stay to the end because there is a blooper. Until next time. The other thing that happened after World War II was a number of purely functional slipper baths opened. And we are talking about just a place where you had a bath. No pools, no jacuzzis, no jacuzzis?